Thanks for joining. My name is Luke Johnson. I'm the APAC Implementation Services Director at Revisto. And today we're going to be giving you a product update webinar, what's new and what's coming. So it's going to be quite exciting. Just a quick agenda. We'll cover topics like spatial detection of issues. We'll review the advanced automation feature in Revisto Plus, how you can use reporting and filtering by company to really get the maximum value out of your issue data. We will look at point cloud clash detection and some of the things that are coming soon. I'll just share my live screen because it's mostly going to be a live demonstration today. All right, so most of you are probably aware already of Revisto Plus. That's obviously our premium product, and it has a lot of automation features in it. So if we think about the journey of Revisto to date, you know, we've really established this integrated collaboration platform where we've got drawings, we've got the model, we've got the conversation, but now some of the steps we're taking are basically towards automation and further into the field use. So this is how we plan to, you know, help to optimize you know, the built environment and the design and construction process. And just if you do have any questions, you can feel free to put them into the Q&A box, and we will have about 15 minutes at the end to cover off on the questions. So that'll be great if we can have a few questions coming through during the session. So one of the first things I wanted to talk to you about was the spatial detection of issues. Now, prior to some recent releases, if you wanted to begin reporting issues by their location, you would have to do things like come in here and perhaps edit a tag and manually create tags for levels of rooms and so on. And it was quite a manual process. Now, if you're a Revisto Plus user, you now have the automated spatial detection of issues. So as you're navigating the model, you can simply place a stamp and drop it onto the model. And on the right-hand side here, we can see all of the issue location data has been detected automatically. Nearest grid, what level it's on, what room it's in, and zones, okay? So let's briefly look at configuring that information. If we go into Edit, Project Properties, you can see here that we have the live project, and we can go into Levels and click Edit, and we can set the model to use the levels from. So this basically affects those issues as we place them. It detects what level it's on. You can see there's an option at the bottom, whether you're going to use the level below that issue or above for the reporting purposes. And this will also be used in the grouping of clashes and clash automation. So it's quite an important, you know, setting to get right from the beginning of our project if we can. The other one is the grids, and very similar. You can nominate one of your models as kind of the master model for grids, and you can choose to store the closest grid intersection or all grid intersections within a certain radius of the issue. Now, the final one here on the spatial detection settings is the Revisto Zones, okay? We understand that a lot of project teams break up their project in different ways. You know, you might have on a given floor plate, you might have multiple sectors. Or in an infrastructure project, you could have work packages. So when you want to break up your project in an arbitrary way, how do you go about it? Well, you do have to do a little bit of modeling work. And I'll just show you a quick example in Revit here. What we've got here in the background is a Revit model, which we've only got the architecture model linked in. And what we wanted to do is break it into two main construction zones because there was kind of an existing zone and a kind of proposed area, right? Kind of zone A, zone B. And so we need to create some 3D elements. And there's really two ways to do it. You can either create a 3D kind of mass, like a in-place family, which is what, you know, kind of this object is. You know, in Revit, you'd go kind of modeling in place, create an extrusion. The main thing there is that the name of that in-place family is what Revisto is going to use when tagging the issue. So that's kind of one way to do it. The other way you can do it is actually use a set of rooms. Now, as you know, Revit kind of likes to only have one set of rooms in each model. So in this particular case, what we would want to do is create a separate model called zoning, and we could place a room in it. So you're seeing kind of the architectural link in the background. If we were to hide that off, we can then see that we've got this object here, and it's named like so. So these are kind of two different ways that we can use kind of massing objects or room objects. Over in the Revisto side, you can then create a search set that picks up on those zones, right? So if we just go to our home view briefly, what we do have is a search set in here in our clash area called Revisto Zoning. If I isolate that, you'll see there that kind of massing object, but it's typically hidden in our home views and in our appearance templates and so on, so it doesn't appear. But that drives the zoning settings. Now, if you're not in a Revit environment, you basically need a 3D object that's appropriately named, and you could create that however you choose to, in CAD or some other platform. So the impacts of this feature, spatial detection, I think are going to be really big, because you no longer have to kind of manually manage metadata. And that's going to make a big difference to your teams. If you think about coordination processes, they're always based on the location of the issue. That ties in with your design program, that ties in with how you're going to report back to your team, to your superiors or whatever. So having that automated makes your life a lot easier, because you can now simply do your normal workflow, creating issues and using Clash automation, and all that data is going to funnel into the correct, zoning kind of metadata. You can also apply this to existing issues. Let's say you've got a project that's active and you've got several thousand issues in it. You've now become a Revisto Plus user and you want to set all the metadata. You can just come up here, click the kind of extended menu in the issue tracker and go update issue location tags, and hitting done will actually drive in the metadata into all those issues, even if we created them in Revisto standard. So that's a handy thing to know as well. Let's have a look at the advanced automation now, because this has only been released kind of in the last 1 or 2 point releases in Revisto. Clash automation is a really important thing now in Revisto Plus. It has drastically improved the cycle speed. When we say that, the moment between when you receive a model and when you issue actions to your team, that is often can be days, on a project. Whereas with Revisto Plus, the models are federating to the cloud, the issues are getting detected, grouped, and assigned automatically, on a process. So that's, massive time saving. Now, that was all working fine in kind of the first release of Revisto Plus, which allowed us to nominate for a given clash test. We could say that gets assigned to this discipline, and we could kind of just do it a kind of one-to-one relationship like that. What we can do with advanced automation is we can have a single clash test, but we can distribute the results, and we could assign them to different people. We could prioritize them differently, and we can set rules to achieve that. So let's have a look at this simple example here. You can see that we've got essentially a matrix approach in these 4 tests, where we're beginning with here steel versus all of the service disciplines, mechanical versus everything else. And when we come to this level, we've got hydraulic just versus electrical and fire. So how do we configure this advanced automation to distribute the issues correctly? So firstly, we check out the clash test. That means we're taking ownership and we're editing it. As you're aware, clash automation is cloud-based. So you can have a whole team working on these results together. You can set up permissions. And in this particular instance, we're now just editing or working on this one test. So what we're going to do, we won't go through all the settings because we generally cover this in our training. And I guess that's a bit of a side point. If all this is looking a little bit scary, that's why we have a technical team in our region to support you. So you have a assigned implementation manager to your account. That person has access to templates. They can share with you standard stamps, clash test search sets, and really onboard you, get you moving quickly So, you don't have to manually set a lot of these things up. So just keep that in mind, because we won't go through every detail in this kind of 1 hour session. So let's just look at the issue automation. The main prerequisites that we need is we need some stamps and we need some search sets, because essentially the concept is, okay, we've got a clash, it's been grouped. Now we're going to use search sets to figure out what's in that group, and then we're going to set a rule to do something. Okay, so if I click on the settings here, the advanced automation is already activated, and there's only 2 rules in this example. Okay, one little important point to note, under the selection area, what we've done here is we've got the hydraulic discipline on the left-hand side, or the A side, and we've got electrical fire on the B side. Okay, and then in our grouping area, what we've done is we've grouped by item source file B, first of all. Okay, so this is respecting the concept that really issues are going to be assigned back to certain model authors. Okay, so item source file B is going to group by the electrical or the fire model, first of all, and then it's going to group in this example by level and by chain proximity. And as you know, we have a bunch of different automated grouping options, and some of these tying back into the spatial detection we talked about earlier. You can group by level, by zone, which is those customized zones we talked about. All right, so we've now got grouped results that are essentially ready, because they've been grouped by source file B. They're kind of discipline centric. They're now ready to be auto assigned. So in the advanced automation here, what we've done, we've created 2 rules, and you do name them. So that's what the little pencil here is for. So the first rule is called assign to fire. And what it does is it says if the clash group has at least one object B. So from that right-hand side of the clash tests, it's picking up that, hey, there's a fire object or multiple fire objects in this clash group. And so it's saying matching search sets fire, and you actually pick the search set in here. And I've used the same one that I've picked back in the clash test definition. And then the kind of action is create issue. And it's a stamp, it's a fire clash. We can have a default assignee like is shown here, which is Vlad. And those fire issues are going to be auto assigned to him. Then we can have, assign to electrical. And basically, if clash group has at least one object B, electrical, then create an electrical clash. Okay. Now we can extend this concept massively, and we have on some projects already, where we could do rules like, if it's a sloping pipe, assign it to this discipline. If we've set some certain custom parameter on an object, assign it to that discipline. So you can kind of manually override things using custom fields where the issue is going to be assigned to. So it's very powerful, very extendable. And the overall idea is that in the industry, people are going to pick this up. They're going to take this really smart coordinator's brain. They're going to begin putting the rules into this machine, and then they're going to optimize how much work they can do, the quality of work they can do, because they're now automating. The old ways are going to go, and automation is the future. And so that's what we've really built here, is an automated coordination system. So let's briefly look at how it might work. We would open up our clash test here. We can see a number of these are already kind of active clashes that have been synced to the issue tracker. If we wanted to update the results, we'd click on the run clash detection, and that would detect if there's any new clashes, put them into the list there. And then what we want to do is we want to test those automation rules. So under the More menu, you go Advanced Automation, and you'll see this item, and then you can click on it and go Test Automation Rules. And you can see those 2 rules that we created, assign to fire and assign to elect. If I click on one, it shows these are the particular clashes that should be assigned to fire. There's one here that hasn't been converted to an issue. If I click on it, I can see that evidently I've got like a fire pipe clashing with a electrical conduit or a hydraulic pipe, something of that nature. But it's going to ultimately, when we sync it through the issue tracker, it's going to be assigned to fire based on the rule. And if we go assign to electrical, we can see this one, which has evidently like an electrical plate or something that that's why it's going to be assigned to electrical. So we can, very quickly do this example. We would typically mark those 2 as reviewed. So grab them, mark them as reviewed. That's just a way of us managing some of our workflow. And then we could go sync with issue tracker. It's just going to move those two there through the issue tracker. And then we can begin kind of checking on those results. Not that we really need to, because it's an automated system, but we could go to the issue tracker here, use our filters. Probably the most useful filter, first of all, would be by test, which is this one. And we could do something maybe like by created date. So, you could figure out when it was created and things like that. And then we could also, go by assignee, something like that. And we could actually see which ones were assigned to whom. So we can see these ones. This one here is the one that's been created from the advanced automation and assigned correctly to the person who's in charge of that discipline. So that's a very quick overview of advanced automation. It might seem like a lot to begin with, but once you've got that framework established, and what I like to call this, kind of a standardized framework for digital project management that we're building. Once you've got that framework established, things are going to start to move automatically to where they need to go. And that starts to tie into our reporting and other things. So let's have a look at some other automation features that are going to save you time that have come out recently. If we go to just our home viewpoint briefly, keeping in mind we've already set up our levels model. What if I want to create a viewpoint per level? What I would do then is, I'm just going to delete this one for a second. I just don't want to delete my home view. I do want to delete those. All right. So what we can do is we can say, I want to create a viewpoint per level. So we'd come up here and go create viewpoint per level. And this is a Revisto Plus automation feature as well. And we choose the model to use the levels from, and we can choose kind of a horizontal extents model. And that's kind of how big the section box is going to be, in the X and Y axis. We can set a top and bottom offset. Often a bottom offset is a good idea because you probably want to include like the slab below a level in the actual section box, and we can go create 30 viewpoints. So, we haven't had to manually do this. We've now got our viewpoints created. If we want to begin working with them, it makes sense to use our kind of view cube-like functionality here, Control and 1 at the same time. So Control 1 brings us to the isometric view, and we can now work our way through. We could update those if we wanted to use this perspective typically. But yeah, that's a nice automation feature because a lot of the time our coordination is based on levels or kind of areas like this, and that helps us to set up those views. Of course, in conjunction with appearance templates, we could then just activate the service disciplines and quickly review them level by level. So that's the auto viewpoint creation. Now I want to talk about something that is applies to both Revisto Standard and Revisto Plus, which is our reporting enhancements recently, and specifically reporting and filtering by company. Because again, if we went back a little ways, we used to have to do things like go into the issue tracker, go in and set a tag for perhaps the company name or the discipline name or something, okay? No need to do that anymore, because what we're going to do is we're going to set the metadata once in the cloud, and then that's going to affect all of our reports and our issue filters and so on. So how do we do it? We go to issue tracker, click on the email icon. That opens up our web page, logs into the web workspace, and we can begin working on our user management. So the user management page is where you set, the company for a particular person. So if I click on the drop-down menu here, go user management, what we should see is, our list of users, and we've got these three fields: company, department, and location. And we're just going to focus on company today, but you can of course use the same ideas for department and location. A lot of companies are now using department as discipline, right? So they've kind of decided to use that department field as, architecture, mechanical, and so on. So let's focus on company, because a lot of our reporting comes down to who is the responsible company, okay? So what we do is we come to a particular user and we'll select that user, and let's just do a quick search here, and we'll grab that person and we go set company, and we want to choose the kind of home company for that person. So let's say they belong to good engineering, and then we hit set, and that person has now been added to that company. Now at the project level, it's almost a little bit easier because you can come into the project level. Let's go to the project directory, and we'll open up the same project that we're looking at and go to the project team. What you can see here is the list of people in the project and the company that they belong to, okay, that we've set in user management. So we can now see that, you know, all of the kind of participants in that project actually have a company set. So that's going to be really useful to us for two reasons. We're going to be able to report and dashboard it out, and we're going to be able to filter the issues in the issue tracker. So if we were to go to the dashboards, you know, we've obviously upgraded the dashboard module in the past kind of 6 months or so. I've created a single dashboard here, and we've got a chart called by company, okay? And very simple, if I go into configure, all it is a bar chart, and it's got grouping by assignee company and then by status. So assignee company is obviously who's the individual that's assigned to that issue right now, what company do they belong to, and then it's summarizing the issues by that. So you can see here, you know, we can quickly figure out which companies have the most issues assigned to them and which ones have solved the most issues and so on. Now, back in the product, back in the Revisto viewer, what if we want to work with that company data? You know, we may have, again, several thousand issues. The idea is basically the same. We come in here, let's just start from scratch. So we're looking at an issue list. We'd expand all of our panels, and we go by assignee company, and we can see the same list of companies here. And we could go good engineering has 175. Maybe I'd go by status, any of open or in progress, 156. So we can now quickly create a filter, save the filter, you know, by the company name perhaps, and create, and we could also make that shared. So we've now used the company metadata in our dashboards. We've used it inside the Revisto viewer, and we could also use it in reports. So we could also come in here and create a report, a new report, you know, it might be a PDF, good engineering, and we could filter by assignee company in here is good engineering, right? So that's going to just filter down to the issues, you know, that are assigned to that company. So we should no longer be tagging issues by company or discipline. We should be using the web workspace to set that metadata once, and it will apply to all of our projects. Similarly, we should not be tagging, you know, our issues by location anymore, because Revisto Plus is now automatically setting that data for us. So we're simplifying, standardizing, making the metadata set correctly in those issues, which is then going to drive the whole project, you know, towards efficiency. We also released recently point cloud clash detection. Now, that pretty much came with version 5.8. So we can basically load in point clouds to our project, and we can run a point cloud clash detection against them. So, you know, you may have your own projects with the point clouds loaded in, and you basically use the same concept. You know, you set up a search set that picks up the point clouds, and over in 3D, and in our clash automation, we've got here, you know, architecture versus point cloud, for example. And if we look at the results, we can see that the actual point cloud gets highlighted. You know, we can isolate pieces of the point cloud. We can obviously adjust our normal kind of visibility settings to maybe make it a little bit easier to comprehend what's going on. And we can then see, the point cloud versus the architectural model. What's different and what's the same, and so on in there. So pretty powerful feature for verification, as-built checking, and so on. Obviously, that is going to depend on you having set up point cloud capturing on your project and having it loaded into Revisto regularly to be able to do all those verification things against the point cloud and checking whether or not walls are in the correct position, services, and so on. All right, let's go back to our other model and cover off on a few other points, a few other new things. We released recently the ability to index PDF sheets and search across their content. Okay, so when we go to 2D, you may have a bunch of sheets loaded into your project, but typically when you search here, you can only search by the sheet name. Now, we did release the ability to search kind of by wildcard and use wildcard operators here and elsewhere in the product. So keep that in mind. Things like the asterisks and so on, you can use those operators here. We also released this box. We can tick the box. We get an exclamation point the first time we do it. It says, hey, you've got a lot of sheets in your project. Do you want to index them? Indexing means searching through, all of the actual notes on that sheet, making it so that we can find sheets by actual information on the sheet. So this could be really powerful. Index your sheets. Now you want to find a certain piece of equipment, the label number, and you type the label number in and you find, all the places that piece of equipment is referenced across all your sheets. So be aware of that one, the ability to index your sheets and search across them. Another one recently released is in the past, it's been a bit of a point of frustration that when you make a section box around some objects, it kind of is rotated a little weirdly. Sometimes it's usually rotated to true north. So if we find some object that's kind of angled, right? So maybe this facade. So in the past, if we tried to kind of select this and make a section box around it, it would just be at some arbitrary angle, not aligned to the object. Whereas now with the current version of Revisto, if we click an object and click the scissors, notice how the section box is rotated or aligned to the object, okay? And the way that's working is it's picking up where you've clicked when you selected the object to set up the rotation, okay? So one more time, if you wanted to set up a section box around this rotation, you'd want to click on the face of that and then click the scissors. And now we've got a section box that's rotated automatically to, that facade. And that will work on any type of object, that's rotated. We also released enhanced measuring tools. Another thing that people have been wanting for quite a while is things like the ability to measure pipe slopes. So when you've got a sloping pipe, how do you actually measure the slope of it? So when you go to your measuring and use your angular tool, you've got an option here now for pipe slope. And when you place, that measurement onto the pipe, you can see it now measures the pipe slope, which is exactly what we want, right? We also released a host of other enhancements here in measuring. So if we go to the normal kind of measuring mode, in fact, point to point, when you make a point-to-point measurement, in the past, it was just kind of off on any kind of angle, whereas now you can go perpendicular or parallel, and you can actually drag kind of the gizmo, choose the surface that you want to run perpendicular or parallel with when you're doing that dimension. So that's much more powerful as well for our measuring. At the bottom left of screen, you'll see now the little 3D widget, which helps you figure out, which way is up if you ever get lost in your model. And under the issue tracker, something else that's quite interesting that's very recently released is the ability to filter issues by sheet tag. Okay, so we can now, these tags here are not issue tags. These tags are from the sheet area. So if I went to 2D, the way those are done is you have a sheet open and you can edit the tags on it and tag that sheet up. So we can now start using tags as kind of a way of managing our sheets, filtering them, but then filtering issues created on those sheets. So maybe we could start using tags as a kind of sheet status, or tags as a kind of package number or something, which will allow us to really get the most out of filtering those issues. So the way you do it, you can open up a particular sheet, you can hit edit on the tags, you can do maybe elect review 1, add that, and done. And maybe there's a number of issues created on that sheet. And then in the issue tracker, we can go elect review 1, and we can see the issues that were created on that sheet. Okay, so keep in mind, these are not issue tags, they're sheet tags, but it allows us to bring these two worlds together, tagging up sheets and then actually managing the issues from those tag sheets in the issue tracker. A couple of other little bits and pieces in our preferences. Under graphics, we released the ability to customize the background. You might have noticed mine's black. So you can have your normal kind of day background, or you can have your own preference for it's black or purple or something like that. So that's a nice little feature as well. All right, so we covered off on quite a few things there. Just going back to the beginning again, the recent releases, particularly Revisto Plus and the enhancements there, are all based on automation. They're based on speeding up the process, making it more standardized, making it more efficient. So if you do need help, you've got the VDC team, the implementation manager, who can help you. We will provide things to you like stamps, a set of stamp templates that you can begin using. We'll supply, a set of search sets, for example. With our whole concept around exclusions and finding disciplines by model and so on, we can give you, that framework to begin with. And we can also provide to you a set of clash tests, similar to, these ones with the advanced automation already set. And so you can just basically load those things into your project. We'll help you optimize it, to your actual needs. And then you'll be able to, run all those advanced automation features on your project. So we looked at issue spatial detection and how that's going to really speed up, the ability to report issues by their location, and just being able to come in, and you don't have to do any fancy tricks. Keeping in mind, you could do this with the iPad, you could do this on site. As you come in, you see a problem, you grab the stamp, you drop it, and it gets tagged by grid and level and room automatically. And also those zones, we talked about creating the zones, how you load them in, how you set the search set, and then you're able to have that automated, spatial detection. So, really excited for this release, for these recent updates. We also received basically approval from our CEO to tell you about some things that are coming. So one of the things that are coming are Sharepoint integration. So we know that a lot of people want more and more integrations, and we definitely want that too. As you're aware, we have a number of integrations already in the product, but we want to build out that functionality. We know a lot of enterprises use SharePoint, and so we've really prioritized SharePoint integration, A-site integration. We're also working on a Forge integration, which is essentially going to allow us a more automated or scheduled way to load models from a BIM 360 kind of Forge environment and into Revisto. We also have the issue tracker on the web in development. So, a lot of what we've shown you today is all using the kind of Revisto viewer on PC, which is, the very similar app is available on the iPad. But what if you don't want to install anything on any devices? So the issue tracker on the web, you'll be able to log in, view your issues initially, and take photos on site and things like that. And the other one, which is a bit of a, I can't tell you too much at this stage, but basically we're working on some exciting field functionality that we will unveil later this year. So field functionality is really key, we believe. Taking all of this nice design coordination work that has been done and moving it through to site and getting the maximum value out of that very large team of people who are moving around on site. All right, so that's most of the content we wanted to go over today in our APAC Product Update webinar. We do have around 15 minutes or so for questions, so I think it'd be great if we can switch over to questions now. And Vlad might be helping us out with the Q&A there.
Yeah, sure. We can start. Some people posted in chat and some in Q&A. So we'll just start with the Q&A ones. Ian McKinnon's asking about setting up zones and levels in tools other than Revit. So you obviously demonstrated how to do it in Revit, but is it possible to set it up in other tools and to still have them reflect in Revisto?
Yeah, definitely for zones, we can do that. So as I kind of said, as long as it's a 3D object that has a name, it doesn't particularly matter where it comes from, as long as it's, a mass that contains something, space, essentially, it'll be able to be used. At the moment, grids, I think, are uniquely supported from Revit. Levels, we, are expanding this functionality always. So wherever we've got a model that comes into Revisto and we interpret the level data correctly, whether it's from ArchiCAD or MicroStation or whatever, the levels will be able to be used. So definitely, the goal is to not just support Revit, and I think everyone's aware of how many different add-ins and plugins we have. So we'll continue to build out, on request, any of those functionalities for supporting other tools.
Well, Andrew is saying that he uses measurement tools frequently, but wants to know whether there's a way to measure from grid lines now with the refreshment, the measurement tools.
Yeah, I'm really, really glad Andrew brought that up. Probably something I should have shown you already. But yeah, so we've got the grid line overlay now, right? So we've set our grids in the project properties. We come down here, we can turn the grid line overlay on. We could set it to kind of the level below where we're standing. So, we can see a simple room here with some grids. When we do go to our measuring, we could place a measurement maybe on this wall, but now we can come over and notice how as we near the grid, I'm not doing anything special, just dragging until we hit the grid, and it's now snapping onto the grid. So it'll snap there, it'll snap kind of to intersection of grid. And then using that functionality we showed you earlier, we can grab the control at the middle and kind of move it to set perpendicular measurement to a face. So that does, I think, exactly what Andrew would like it to do, because we can now snap to grid and we can also run that dimension, perpendicular or parallel to surfaces.
Awesome. Jonathan is asking about connection to Aconex. I guess I can answer that question. The story with our connection to Aconex is that we approached Aconex a few years ago about it, and ultimately we were told that they don't have an interest into developing a connection, out-of-the-box connection between Aconex and Revisto. Luke can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that our team is starting to work on API functionality rather soon. So that's, as far as I know, planned to be released sometime this year. And once the API functionality is released, then our clients will be able to develop their own middleware between Revisto and Aconex. But as from out of the box, I guess the only way for us to do it is if the common clients talk to their account manager in Aconex and start applying pressure, saying that this is something they really need, because we tried a few years ago and we weren't successful. Adam Crouch just asked the question about an integration as well. Project-wise integration, is it still on the roadmap? As far as I know, it's one of the highest priorities for us, but I'll let Luke correct me if I'm wrong.
No, that's correct. And again, these things are always two-sided. So we are very keen to integrate, and we're basically talking to Bentley And some of these things we can actually benefit from the customer help. You know, if you've got Bentley contacts that, you know, influential, you know, continue to request the same thing to them, because we want to do it, and we're keen and we're kind of ready to make that integration happen. But it's always kind of there's two players, you know, involved. Yeah.
Awesome. I'll just transfer to the chat questions now. Sorry, just give me a sec.
Yeah, notice one from Michael Richards. Yep.
Yeah.
He says, do you need to re-index the sheets whenever you upload additional sheets? Basically, no, because you know, it's kind of the first operation is gets the sheets indexed, but for future exports and when you're loading the sheets and PDFs in, they'll kind of be indexed automatically. So that was kind of just to support the legacy sheets, but generally they should be indexed automatically on the way into the platform, whether that's through import PDF or in the Revit plugin or the other plugins. Yeah.
Cool. Next question by Michael Cook. Is there a plugin for TRW or recap to link directly to cloud projects?
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what kind of the client would kind of want there, but basically we have, you know, the ability to project, import point cloud formats directly. The other thing that came recently was 12D direct import, 12D XML. So you can import point cloud formats direct. You can also, from any of our kind of add-ins that support it, when you do a export to Revisto, you've got the option there to tick the point cloud option. So we don't kind of have a cloud to cloud link with a point cloud repository at this stage, if that's the question. But we do have simple ways of getting the data in through either the add-ins or direct import to get the point clouds in.
Cool. Holger de Groot is asking, when setting up a new large-scale project and running a training session for all team members, how much time would you recommend to take into account to get it up and running without taking any shortcuts?
Yeah, great question. So, you know, we've done this many times over the past several years. There's kind of two, I guess, phases. You've kind of typically on those large projects, you have a DE team or a BIM team, and it may involve multiple disciplines. So we kind of support that DE team intensively in helping them set up projects. As we said, you know, sharing template information, monitoring how they've configured the stamps and the reports and so on. So that's kind of a setup phase, and we work, you know, do a lot of assistance in that stage. When we come time to onboard the wider team, let's say there's 150 or 200 people on that project, we would typically offer 3 training sessions. The first one being a basic training, which is roughly 45 minutes. And we can cover all the navigation, all the 3D, 2D, and issue tracker in that session. So that's, you know, allowing you to get around, use the model, raise issues, and so on. The second session is what we would call Revisto Advanced. And in Revisto Advanced is when, you know, we kind of switch the interface here from the basic mode to the advanced mode, and we begin going through the search sets, the appearance templates, you know, selecting objects, exporting data, all that kind of stuff. That's roughly another 45 minutes. And then depending on the team, we would then have a dedicated session around Clash automation or Revisto Plus features, where we would help the team understand how to interact with the Clash results, you know, marking items as approved, resolved, moving things to the issue tracker, and so on. So it's roughly, you know, for a wider team, a large team, you know, we don't really need more than 3 hours to onboard them to every feature in Revisto. And then a lot of the time is then just, you know, handling questions that make them up.
Cool. Alexandra Dubowska is asking if it's possible to assign an issue to both disciplines like A and B, not just B. So the discipline assignees decide who needs to update the issue.
Yeah, Revisto has a philosophical kind of resistance to having multiple assignees to an issue, because when you have multiple assignees, the thing may never get actioned. So we always have kind of stood by the fact that it's best to have, an issue with a single assignee. And let's say that the scenario is that one person needs to do some work, then the next person. In this case, maybe it's a complicated clash or coordination issue. So Duncan may do his work, and then he may reassign it on to the next person. And we'll be able to observe kind of the change in hands of that issue, and it will be moved through multiple people. Now, we plan to, and I'm not going to say really much about this, but we plan to do some things there to help you with those kind of features. But basically, yeah, we really want issues assigned to a person, because that affects all the reporting and the responsibilities and everything like that.
Alexander's also asking if there's any health and safety issue assigning functionality. I believe that would go into steps. Yeah.
So health and safety, is just another kind of issue typically in our system. So in this particular example, we've got a safety and design issue as we navigate around the model. Even from, if we're in a single location, we're seeing multiple safety and design issues. We could choose that one stamp, hold down the control key and click multiple times. And each time it's raising an issue with each click. So that's one way to go about it. There may also be issues with a certain object type. Let's say it's a stair, right? So in Revisto 5, we could go find all of the stairs in my model, and we could basically raise a stamp or an issue on top of every single stair. So we could simply go like this, find the same, and it's found 236 stair objects in the model. And if we look at our selection inspector, which is this one, we could actually grab all of those, and we could go and place a stamp automatically, like a safety and design issue stamp, on 236 objects. So that's kind of now creating almost like an action point. I want to go there, I want to look at it, and I want to mark it as solved. So that's how you can kind of batch create issues for inspections and things like that.
Oh, Jonathan is asking when the SharePoint integration will be available.
Yeah, well, essentially it's underway now in this kind of quarter. We've got our web team on it, so I can't give the clear ETA on that without checking with our CEO, but we could report back to you, directly about that.
Last I heard, the plan was the latest by the end of Q2 this year, which means
that's right.
End of June. That's the plan is the latest. So hopefully we can deliver it even before that. Michael Cook's asking about that point cloud linking question. So he's asking about cloud to cloud linking, not just importing in the
Yeah. So in the current kind of Revisto world, what I would consider doing is, storing those point clouds in a place where Revit could touch them, like on the BIM 360. We could then set up a federated point cloud model, and we could use our export scheduler to publish those point clouds automatically. Now, it's still going to use a client device to do it, but we can publish the point clouds. It could be multiple point clouds, and they're going to be sent through, nightly to Revisto.
Cool. Will Harbison is asking who they should ask from Aconix about integration development. So Aconix normally has an account manager assigned to every account. So I guess your best bet is to talk to someone from a company who can point you towards your account manager. to tell them, but I guess for their mind to start changing, we will need a lot of clients to do the same thing. And who at Revisto they should contact? They can feel free to contact Luke or myself directly. They can just grab an email off our website as well and email directly to us. I'm just gonna give a little caveat there. Even if we have a situation ultimately now that there's a change of heart in Oracle about that integration, it will still be subject to our roadmap, because we had it on our roadmap 3 years ago and it didn't go anywhere. So we've got other priorities now on the roadmap. So I'm not saying it wouldn't happen. It's just not something that can happen overnight in any case. Awesome. And I believe that was the last question we had, both in our Q&A and in our chat boxes.
Yep, great. We've got 1 or 2 minutes left, so I just thought I'd have a little bit more of a look at our reporting enhancements that have come recently. Because we have the Clash automation, running now, we're able to report very quickly on those things. So we could group our results by kind of Clash tests and by status. So we could easily have a kind of a live feed, if you like, of the Clash results that are coming from Clash automation. And these, we have a lot more kind of customization here. We can turn on and off different parts. So if I only want to look at certain Clash tests, I can turn those on like so. And we can also customize like the colors and things in here. So if, for example, I wanted to change the color of one company's open clashes, I could just go edit and I could set that to a different color and it changes the color. So you can, basically create more kind of visually appealing things. We also have the donut version now, which is a new kind of visual type, which is, a lot of people are liking, particularly with, keeping in mind these little tooltips that are popping up, because it's giving us, a total percentage of, how many of those clashes are belonging to which company and so on. So we continue to enhance these. Another kind of hot tip is once you've created, some charts, and instead of perhaps setting up a full set of PDF reports, you can actually schedule the delivery of a chart, and you can actually include the report attached to the chart. That's what this option is here, going to PDF with issues. And so what it's going to do is going to create a chart, firstly, front page, and then it's going to put a list of all the issues after that. And this could be sent out, as we're doing here, automatically on a schedule. It could be done, every Friday. So thinking about the level of automation now, the clashes are getting detected, grouped, assigned, and now reported automatically, through these scheduled features. So it's a really high level of automation. And as you continue to customize your own Revisto standards, you're just going to get more and more time savings and quality improvements over time as you do that. All right, well, if there's no other questions, I think we might leave it there for today's webinar. We really appreciate you all joining in. Look forward to working with you more individually. Myself, also on the technical team now, we have Duncan Sharp and Matthew Guns as well. So we're building out the technical team in the APAC region. So you're going to get more and more assistance from us. So yeah, just please feel free to reach out to us and we'll work with you so you can get the most out of these things that we've discussed today. Have a great week.
Everyone.